journalist and TV producer. Welcome back, and welcome, of course, to those of you who are joining my interview series, How to Get into TV, Radio and Film for the First Time. Each week, I interview top industry professionals about their career paths. They also share the best and most challenging aspects of their job and give invaluable advice as to how you too could break into this industry. Now, to keep up to date with who I'm interviewing and when, subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell icon to get regular reminders. Now, let me introduce you to my guest. She's a focus puller, working across drama, documentary, and short films, and she's toured with the Foo Fighters, no less. Welcome, Ravi Kang. Hi, Ravi.
Hi, Samina.
Hi, Ravi. Good to have you. Could you share with us, to begin with, how did you get your first break, and how did you choose, and why, sorry, did you choose this industry?
Well, it all started when I was little. I had such a huge interest in photography. And I actually, when I was little, I wanted to be an artist. And my parents said, no, because you don't earn any money. So from the get-go, that was kind of like art wasn't considered a career path, especially within the Asian community.
Yeah, well, what's your heritage, by the way?
So I'm Indian, but born in Britain, so first generation over here. So yeah, so basically, you know, being an art or in any art, you know, performing arts was not considered a sort of go-to career. But I had a huge interest in photography, so I decided to carry that on into A-levels, despite my parents, and, you know, not knowing that there was a career choice beyond just photography. So I carried on, I went into university, did a degree at over in Edinburgh, and it just started from there. It was a photography and film course, but suddenly there was a door that suddenly I thought, oh, film and TV, that's quite interesting. And I ended up going down that path.
But how did you get that first break? Like, how did you get your foot in the door?
So after uni, it took me about 18 months, took me ages. I just applied, sent CVs, covering letters, phone calls to production companies, to camera hire facility. I knew I wanted to go into cameras, so there's a huge array of companies that you can hire camera equipment from. So I just kept sending, emails weren't really around 20 years ago, letters, phone calls, and it took a long time, 18 months, and then someone just finally gave me a break, and I ended up working at a camera hire company in Shepperton Studios. But I was literally a trainee, so I did odd jobs from, you know, cleaning the vans, changing tires. It wasn't glamorous at all. But, you know, I got a chance to tinker with cameras when I could, and then eventually went up the ladder.
I mean, this is becoming a universal story within my interviews about being passionate and being persistent and not giving up. I mean, 18 months in the biggest scheme of things isn't that long to get your dream job. But this has become a running theme throughout my interviews. And I think it's really important to share with those at entry level the importance of really pursuing and going after what you want, Ravi.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I mean, I did loads of temping jobs. I was working in offices, and I knew that that wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in the creative world. I wanted to, you know, just get into photography. So I still used to take my own photos and perhaps, you know, on holiday and at home. But yeah, I really, really wanted to get into film and TV.
And how did you move up the ladder then? Because you're a focus puller now, which we'll come back to in a moment.
Sure.
I was just wondering, what was that transition? So here you are, you've become a trainee. How did you manage to climb up the ladder?
So basically, I was a trainee stroke second AC or camera assistant for, I was a trainee for about 3 years while I was working at the camera company. And then once you eventually, you have your time at camera companies and you end up going freelance, which is a very big daunting world as well. So that's a whole other chapter. But basically and then I decided to make the move up to camera assistant. And then I was a camera assistant for about 7 years.
And again, so you decided to make the move. Again, what? Pursuing people, asking people to give you the opportunity?
No, because being a trainee, you start to have a little network. And you always get maybe an opportunity to step up a level every so often. And then once you feel confident enough, you kind of just go, I'm a camera assistant now, I'm a second AC. And then that's the same thing with focus pulling. But as you move up the chain, it does become harder to make that move and have people have that confidence in you.
Why do you think that is?
It's just, well, being a focus puller is it's a slightly harder job than the primary thing for being a focus puller is to keep things focused and sharp.
Actually, before you get to that, could you, for those who might not know, focus puller and first assistant camera are one and the same thing.
Yes.
They're interchangeable. So could you just give a definition of what it means to be a focus puller or a first AC? And then we can go into the details of exactly what you do.
Sure. So there is a hierarchy within the camera department. You will have the DOP, Director of Photography, camera operator, then a focus puller, then a camera assistant and a trainee. And there's not always, it's not a set thing that you have to do is work your way up the ladder. But for me, that it works really well because I get to understand each level. And hopefully, one day I will get to be DOP and I will have understood how each person is working and understand how each job is difficult and not, take it for granted that they should be doing this or whatever. But yeah, so being a focus puller, you're in charge of the camera department and you have to make sure everything is all in line, the camera's working. There's not just to keep it sharp, you have to make sure you've got all.
So by sharp, you mean to keep whatever shot you have in focus, yeah?
Yes, so to keep it in focus. There are several, each genre has its own thing that, like with dramas, most stuff has to be in sharp. If someone's walking towards the screen, you need to pull with the person walking towards you. But with sort of music or arty things, you do kind of get away with being out of focus because it's considered arty. Or if that might be the shot the director wants or the DOP. So yeah, it varies.
Yeah, so I've worked on many sets over the years. I used to work as a first assistant director. So that meant, working on commercials, music videos and so on. And I always remember thinking the focus puller had probably one of the most important and most difficult jobs on set. I mean, having to keep things in focus is a big deal. It's a huge responsibility. Can you just share a little bit of the angst you might feel in having that huge responsibility? Because like you said on drama, things have to be sharp.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are so many jobs that like the night before I'm sort of stressing. You have to know your measurements. That's one key element is to know. I mean, over here we work in feet. So you have to know your distance between, say, you and the door.
Can you just elaborate a little bit? Give us a scenario. You're on a drama set. Can you just describe to us what you would do, what those measurements mean in a practical sense?
Yeah, so say we're filming you right now, sitting, and so we're sharp on you, and suddenly someone opens the door behind you, and you then have to work out you've got to either know it or have, depending on what the dialogue is, when someone's going to be at that door. So then you have to pull focus to that door and then maybe back to you. So, between you and the door, I mean, I can't actually see what the room size is. But say it's like 10 foot, I'd have to pull focus from you 10 foot out to the door and then back to you.
So essentially what that means, correct me if I'm wrong. So here's me, you can see me, I'm in focus. Then suddenly somebody walks through that door behind me and and they say something. So suddenly the focus, you need to make sure they're in focus so they can be seen when they say something and I'll be out of focus at that point. However, when I then speak again, you've got to pull focus back on me when I speak, correct?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's quite tricky.
It is tricky, and usually it also obviously the principles of photography helps here because aperture plays a big part in it. But if you do know your marks and each lens has its own markings, it's fine. But no one will notice until it goes wrong. That's the problem with focus pulling. You could have a really good shot, do it the first few times perfect and everyone's happy, and then one tricky shot And sometimes you don't get a rehearsal. So then that's when things kind of go wrong, because everyone's rushing. You don't get a chance to get your marks. And then it's all soft, and then all eyes are on you because you should have got it right the first time. And, people do get fired for it.
That's quite a lot of pressure
It
to be
is.
under. Yeah. This is why I've always thought, honestly, anybody in your role, focus puller, they have a critical job and a huge, so bravo you for being able to, handle all that pressure. So going back to the measurements, I guess, with time, you get an eye for things, you get accustomed to, you get a sort of a sense of distance and so on, right?
Yes, you do. And the more and more you do it, like anything, you just practice. You have to practice. And you get laser machines that you can have in your pocket that you can sort of whap out and try and guess while you're at home or whatever, what the distance is between me and the wall or whatever. That's always like a good, just to keep your brain going and make sure you work out, because sometimes you don't always have time on set to get marks. And sometimes you can look at a monitor and try and work it, but it is very important to know your measurements.
I mean, who'd have thought working in cameras, you'd have to be good at maths?
I know. I know, and know your measurements as well. God.
Well, do you know what? I'm glad you do it rather than doing it. But so listen, I want to talk about the actual camera team now, because as you described, there's several people within the team and there's a hierarchy. So you have to answer to the camera operator and the DOP who are above you, but below you, you have the clapper loader or the second assistant camera and a trainee or a runner as well. So you'll be overseeing them whilst you'll be answering to those above you. How does that dynamic work? And how do you ensure that everyone is across everything and things run smoothly on a set?
Well, it's communication. And generally, if you have crew that and that you have worked with before, how what everyone's workflow is. And it's literally, I mean, there's times when you don't know your second AC, and they might have a different way to working to you. But it's best that you sort of tell them how you work, because it's your workflow, ideally. And then obviously I answer to the DOP and the operator, and sometimes the director, because the director could tell you that actually I want this shot, sharp on the bin or whatever, and then move to, so it is sort of, communication is key. And actually you have to get on with people. That's the main thing. You may be really good at your job, but not a very nice person, and that doesn't help at all. Or if you're stressed, I mean,
how do you manage a situation like that? Because, for the most part, majority of people who work in crew are freelancers. So that means going from job to job, set to set, new groups of people every time, potentially. How do you ensure that, one, you've got that rapport with people? And two, if you do come across somebody who's a little bit challenging, how do you manage that?
Oh, the day does become long when it's someone who is slightly difficult. And unfortunately, you wouldn't, if you had another job coming up, you would choose not to call them up because you didn't have a good day or you just didn't gel. And that happens, like on any job. But, usually, on a film set, you are working very closely together, in tight locations, or and there's abundance of people on a film set, so you kind of have to have a good rapport and a good sort of a personality that you don't get stressed at the smallest things, because that can shine out if little things that go wrong and you get all flustered or angry or grumpy. There's no need for that, because we're all here to work, we all enjoy what we do, and you want to make it fun rather than stressed. And we're not saving lives as such, but we're here doing something we enjoy.
And also, I guess for somebody in your position as a focus puller, it's critical to remain patient and stay calm, because one, it'll impact on your job, and if you don't stay calm, it can impact on the atmosphere in the room and on how others are working.
Absolutely. My first trainee job was on a drama, And I had a focus puller who, wasn't very nice.
What
And
role were you in at that time?
I was a trainee.
Trainee.
So I had literally just come in and sort of very, very new to everything. And I wasn't aware of what things were called. And he would just say, go and get this. And I was like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. And then he'd get really grumpy. And it just made it a not enjoyable shoot. Well, for me, definitely not. And I almost at one point was like, God, if these people are like this in this film industry, I don't want to work in it because they're all horrible. But I'm pleased I pursued, and I never actually worked with him again, so that's fine.
But what did you learn from that experience?
That there was no need for it, really. It was almost it felt like he was a sort of hierarchy, thinking that he could tell me and do things and I should know it, even though I was literally like my first job.
But what did you learn for yourself? Because that's that person behaving how they are. But what did you take away from it as to how you could manage things better the next time? Because what I'm trying to get at here is, you know, for those who are at entry level now, who may well find themselves in a similar position, like how can you build that resistance and get a thicker skin?
Yeah, well, that is it. You hit the nail on the head. Is just to get a thicker skin. Just carry on with that job, and it's not your issue that, you know, he's getting grumpy. You're just doing what you can with the best ability that you can, with the knowledge that you have. And as time goes on, your knowledge will increase, and you know that eventually you won't ever work with that person again, and you will get better as a person with your, you know, information that you've learned from each shoot. Each job is completely different. So yeah, you just have to keep at it and definitely grow a thick skin.
So for those who are at entry level and they're really interested in cameras and they're like, you know what, I like what Ravi's saying and I can see myself doing that. What can you share about what the fundamentals they need to know and what kind of skills and knowledge they need to acquire before they start pursuing jobs or trying to get to the industry, you know?
Well, if it's within the camera department, just simple photography, just the principalities of photography is the main key. You know, aperture, shutter, all, you know, just going out taking photos, that will give you a real good basic understanding of, you know, cameras. And then from there, it will have to be learning on, sometimes you learn on, well, you do learn on set, but, you know, learning cameras will be going into camera company, hire companies or productions, or even like networking within the camera department, because a lot of cameramen or women have their own equipment, so there is chances to do it outside of, you know, not a facility house.
And what about networks? Because these days, you know, there's so many groups online, whether it's for production, for crew, and you know, even boiling it down to cameras and sound and what have you. Those at entry level could potentially go and mix with those communities online and maybe meet up with people and work on projects just to get more experience.
Oh, definitely. Like, you know, even to this day, I still do free shoots. Like, I don't get paid because I have friends who have said, oh, I'm doing this for free for someone else. Will you do it? And then I do it. And it, you know, it's always fun. And it always keeps, you know, when you're a bit quiet, it keeps you sort of, you know, on your toes. But yeah, so, yeah, and on those shoots is where you meet people who are desperate to get into the industry. And then that's the whole thing. So yeah, unfortunately, in this industry, you do have to do some things for free.
Yeah, and I think networking is really key to that, because although you may be doing it for free, you are building your network, because
Yes.
if you step up, then someone like you might go, oh, I remember somebody who was really great. Let's get them on as a runner or a trainee or whatever. So there's opportunities, pathways in that way too.
There is. And absolutely, that's the way I moved up as well. From a loader to a focus puller, I was doing lots of free shoots and freebies with friends who were trying to make their move up from focus puller to operator or DOP. So yeah, that it literally still, that's the way to kind of do it. And yeah, that's the way you do meet new people who are trying to get into the industry, either as a trainee or a runner. And that's, you will remember going, oh, like, you know, they may be fresh or new, but they were really hardworking and they were nice and I got on with them. So I will give them a chance.
Yeah, that's great. And you mentioned the technicals, you know, learning about the aspects of photography and kit. the cameras themselves. Is it necessary to do a course beforehand, or is there the opportunity, if you know a little bit about cameras, because obviously you've got to have some knowledge before you can offer yourself up as you know, a trainee or a runner in a camera department, or is there the you know, a bigger prospect or opportunity to learn on the job, or is it's got to be a bit of both?
I think it's got to be a bit of both. To be honest, when I went to university, I didn't. The things I've learned on set are completely different to what I learned at university. You know, photography, you know, as I've said before, but you do, learning on set is great, but you need to do it constantly. So like going into a camera house would be great, and there are opportunities if you phone them up saying, oh, I'd love, you know, especially in winter when it's pretty quiet, you could go in and have play with camera kit, and then your face is becoming sort of more known around the company, and there is an opportunity for you to perhaps maybe have a job there, or, you know, who knows.
And they're pretty generous like that, you know, facility houses and kit houses, hiring houses, they're pretty generous like that. Quite a few of my friends who work in camera departments, you know, kind of learn some of their trade in those places. So I think they're pretty generous people.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, a lot of my friends, actually, a lot of my friends who I work with now do remember me as a trainee in the camera company. And because they knew the camera company, they knew that I had a fairly good knowledge of the equipment. So yeah, definitely, they were definitely a good career path to go down.
And finally, Ravi, could you just share with all those at entry level, you know, irrespective of whether they're interested in cameras or another area of TV, radio, and, you know, film, what kind of what advice can you give a general advice? What's the best piece of advice you can give for somebody trying to break into this business, irrespective of what role they're after?
It's literally just to keep at it, even if, like, you know, it took me 18 months to even get one. Sorry, it took me 18 months to get one interview, and you know, I didn't get that job, but it suddenly seemed to have flowed. So it's just keep at it, even with all the rejections. You know, your interest, as long as your interest is still there and they can see that, it's just literally don't give up on, like, you know, a couple of letters saying no or emails or whatever. You just have to keep at it. If you believe in yourself and that's what you really, really want to do, it will happen.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing your career story and giving all this advice, Ravi. Really good to talk to you today.
Thank you.
Ravi Kang there, sharing her career story and giving invaluable advice, which no doubt was of inspiration to you. Now, I'd really like to hear from you. How are you getting on? If you're at entry level, have you managed to secure some work experience, an internship perhaps, or even a job? Or perhaps you're still in the process of looking. Whatever your situation is, please do share your stories with me. Also, if there's a job role that I haven't covered, then leave details of that in the comment section below, and I'll do my very best to look into that and secure an interview with an industry professional in that role. Now, if you want to keep up with who I'm interviewing and when, you know, for the details of all my other interviews, and there's many more around the camera department too, if that's what your specialty is, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also feel free to follow me across my social media platforms where I post on a regular basis who I'm interviewing and when. Well, it's been really lovely having your company today. Thank you so much for joining me, and see you next time.